So we made this catapult, and we're wondering how it will make these little packing peanuts fly. These are the cornstarch type of packing peanut that are very easy to squish. So we have one that we're going to leave whole, and one that we're going to take and squish into a ball. Because we're wondering if we can change how far it flies depending on what size it is. So we didn't take any of the material off, we just squished it so that less air was caught inside of it. So the question is, does a packing peanut fly the same distance if it is rolled up into a tight ball? So we're going to start by making a hypothesis. So this says, I think the packing peanut will fly farther before or after it is rolled into a ball. And you're going to circle one of them. Now, it doesn't matter whether your hypothesis is right or wrong. You're just making a hypothesis so that you can test the question. Scientists love it when they find a result that's different than they expected because it means they learned something new. So maybe you think it will fly further after or before, doesn't matter, just circle one. Now, the next step will be to test them. Now, when you're testing them, would it be okay to test it by having some of them be only pulled part way back on your catapult and others pulled all the way back? No. Is the best way to find out what the right answer is about whether it flies further when it's whole or squished to ask a bunch of people? Would the loudest person be right? What about somebody who's like, oh yes, I've done this before, I definitely know the answer? Would it be better to just believe that person or test it yourself? Yeah, scientists like to test things themselves. So we're going to test this and then we'll write down our result. Now, in this investigation, we're comparing whether a whole packing peanut or a squished packing peanut travel further when flung from a catapult. Now, we're doing this from the single catapult, and if we're going to have this be a fair test, would it be okay to sometimes pull the catapult all the way down and other times pull the catapult part way down? No, that wouldn't be a fair test. So we're going to make sure that each time we fling a packing peanut from our catapult, we're going to make sure it goes all the way down so the clothespin is touching itself. That's how we'll make sure we're giving it the same amount of power on each flight. Okay, here we go. First, we're going to fling these 3 whole packing peanuts, because if we only did it once, we wouldn't be sure that it was a pattern. So I'm holding down the box. I'm pulling back the catapult all the way down, and I have a measuring tape out on the floor. So there's 1, there's 2, and here's 3. Now, those went between, let's see, they went from between 4 and 16 inches from the front of the box. Now, here go the same type of packing peanut, but that have been squished up into a ball so there's less air in them. Whoa, that went a lot further. That one went further also. Whoa, so those went between 22 and 28 inches. So I think we can safely say that a squished packing peanut goes further than a whole packing peanut. Now, if you had a big piece of cardboard and you wanted to get across a big field and you held that cardboard flat in front of you and you ran, it would be hard, right? Because there would be so much air pushing against it. Now, if you folded that cardboard up into a smaller area or turned it sideways or folded it into a box, would it be easier or harder to run across the field with? That's right, it would be easier because you wouldn't be having to push through as much air in order to move. The same thing is true for these packing peanuts. You can also think about moving through water. If you're in water that's as deep as your shoulders, is it easier to walk through that water or swim through that water? Right, it's quicker to swim through the water because it's easier, you're not pushing as much water out of the way when you're in a swimming position compared with a standing position. So that's how aerodynamics works. So now that we've tested our hypothesis, we have our result that the packing peanut flew farther when it was smaller. And because we measured how far it went, we can actually see that the squished packing peanut went about twice as far as the unsquished packing peanut. So now that you've completed gathering data, you can write your result. You know that the packing peanut flew farther when it was smaller. So when it was all squished up, it flew a lot further than when it was larger. And here it asks why. And we've talked a little bit about that. And the name that physicists have given to this phenomena is air resistance. So air resistance is the part of aerodynamics where something that is moving through the air is being pushed on by the air. So the air is making it harder for that thing to fly. So the more air something is pushing out of the way, the harder it has to work and the slower it goes. Have fun making things fly.